Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to the vast and Virtua comic book vault. Today we're going to take a look at Virtua Fighter #1, a little-known one-shot put out in 1995 to go along with Sega's launch of Virtua Fighter on the Sega Saturn. The Saturn put out actually a number of Virtua Fighter games. There was the original Virtua Fighter 2, which they at one point started even putting out with the system in kind of the later days of the Saturn when it was starting to fail and they were really trying to push it. They actually put, for a while, 3 games out with the Saturn when you bought it. You got not Virtual Racing. That was on a different system. That was on the 32X. It was Daytona and Virtual Cop and Virtua Fighter 2. And they made a really big deal out of Virtua Fighter 2, but they actually did release the first game, not just on the Saturn, but also on the 32X. And then they did a number of other things too. They did Fighters Mega Mix, which was a mix of Virtua Fighter and a game that they had at the time called Fighting Vipers, which was also quite good. And they also put out Virtua Fighter Kids. There were a number of strange things they did with Virtua Fighter. And I grew up being a big fan of Virtua Fighter. I didn't play a whole lot of fighting games, but Virtua Fighter was one I played constantly. And I just enjoyed I enjoyed the skill it took. You know, I had to learn the configurations. There were a lot of movesets for different characters. I felt like everybody played very differently, and it wasn't the kind of game where you could just stand in a corner and shoot fireballs constantly and kill your opponent. And my dad and I played it together, and so I still have a mega fondness for Virtua Fighter. So I had this in my collection and thought I would take it out and see what it looked like. And this gives the kind of the backstories a little bit of some of the characters in Virtua Fighter, which was a game that had a surprising amount of kind of interesting characters for just being a fighting game, and of course fighting games aren't especially plot-driven, and I always thought that some of these characters could have been used in a comic book or even an animated show, and some interesting things could be done with them. In fact, there is a Virtua Fighter anime, though I've never seen that, and from what I have seen of it, looking at trailers and things, it looks like it was kind of kiddish and campy and silly, but I think but I always thought that a lot of things could have been done with some of these characters. And what's unfortunate about this is that it pretty much in story form gives you what you know about them if you read the instruction booklet and the dossiers that are at the back of this, which very well might actually be the same dossiers that are even in the instruction booklet from the game, but with maybe a few extra things hinted at here and there. For instance, like the idea that Akira kind of has the hots a little bit for pie and tries to the character Pie, not pie, though he might actually like pie. I don't know. We're not told that. But anyway, he kind of tries to ask Pie out to dinner, and she's not interested in him, and she kind of flips him, and he's supposed to be the instructor, so it's kind of an amusing moment. So there's a few fun things here and there like that, but for the most part, it really is in a really short comic book and just a regular length comic book, kind of throwing all these characters in one situation and very contrivingly telling us things about them so that we know who they are when we play the game. So it's not really about telling a story so much as just getting you familiar with these characters before you play the video game, which is also a little bit strange because it's thrown so haphazardly together, because it would have been a lot more helpful if each character had gotten even just a 1 or 2 page little mini story. I almost would have preferred that to what we're given here, because it really is just all these characters come together to train for the World Fighting Championship at Virtua City. It's very comic book that it happens in a place called Virtua City, and they're all fighting each other and just training. And of course, we don't get any of the actual fighting championship because that's what the video game is. And so Akira is training them and is training some of them, and so you get little things like you know, Hawk standing off to the side saying, Wolf Hawk, standing off to the side saying, hey, that's Pie, isn't she a movie star? And so, you know, we know that about her, she's a movie star, which, by the way, is really silly because according to this, her most recent movie is Big Trouble in Big China. Yeah, was that necessary? And then we find out things like like Jeffrey is, or like, I'm sorry, not Jeffrey, but Wolf is there to prove that he's more than just a TV wrestler, and that you know, even though he did, you know, fake wrestling on TV, he actually has skills, and he wants to prove that he's more than that. And so you get some of the motivations for some of these characters and why they're there, which is kind of interesting. The thing that would have really lent itself to a good comic book is what we're given toward the middle and end of this, which is Sarah and Jackie Bryant's backstories. The idea that Jackie was a Formula racing driver whose car was sabotaged for some secretive reason by this secret organization, and Sarah looks into it, and he gets like really badly hurt and put in the hospital, and his sister Sarah goes and investigates and manages, somehow, we're not told, it's not like she's a detective, manages to find out who did it, and she gets some shit or something put in her head, and she's brainwashed to become one of them. And then we also find that the same thing happened to Cage's mother. Cage being the ninja guy with the blue costume and the full headgear. And of course, in the video game, we find at the end when you fight all the way through and you get to Durrell, which is this female character with all this like metal all over her body. You find out that that's actually the brainwashed Cage's mother. But it's really silly how it's handled, because Jackie just goes to this diner and he meets Cage, who's just wearing like this big hood and stuff, and you can't tell who he is, and he just sits down next to him and gets Jackie to tell him his whole backstory, which Jackie does without thinking, and he doesn't mind at all, and he tells him about this about the secret organization that brainwashed his sister. And then at the end of it, Cage reveals that he's Cage, and he says, "I know you haven't told me everything, tell me the rest." And I'm like, if a guy just comes right out and starts randomly telling you this really like horrendous backstory about the secret society that kidnapped his sister, he's probably already told you everything he knows. So I don't know, it's a little bit goofy. The art is very, very mid-90s, appropriately so, it's 1995, and it's good, the art's fine, except that the backgrounds are extremely, extremely Liefeldy. But anyway, this should have been a mini-series or even a maxi-series. I think that, again, for a video game, I always thought some of these characters were really kind of interesting, and some things could have really been done with them if you wanted to flesh them out into their own stories. And you know the hatred between Pi and her father Lau, and I always liked the idea of a father-daughter having to fight against each other in a fighting championship and that kind of thing. And it might have been neat if you know, there had been the training and then all these things going on in the background with the secret society and everything, leading all the way up to eventually the fighting championship at the end, and then you get to see that maybe for a couple issues. So all in all, it's a game tie-in comic. It's there to sell video games. That's what it is, and it's not great, but it's kind of fun to look at if you're you know, already a fan of Virtua Fighter. Well, thanks as always for watching the Comic Book Vault. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you ever have anything you want to send for me or Vince to review on the Comic Vault, you can always send that to Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. And I'm reviewing single issues, miniseries, trades, anything you happen to have just lying around your house that you don't want anymore, or something that you're just really wanting to see me review, you can always send anything you'd like to the Comic Book Vault. And thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.